Welcome back to the Bizz Buzz. We are your hosts
Alondra
and Brian. I hope you guys had a great morning or having a great morning or great afternoon or great night, depending when you are listening to this podcast. Unfortunately, today we had a little hiccup in the morning trying to commute
Brian
over
over
here.
here got late. Came
Ye-
like 30 minutes late.
exactly. I don't know about you guys, but I live in the countryside of Texas, and it's not always too convenient, especially if you're surrounded by train tracks.
Oh
The
yeah.
train just, I guess, decided to stop on the train tracks for a little more over 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think the universe doesn't like you. Like it's not your day today.
Yeah, that could definitely be, but yeah, today is not my day. So, you guys, I hope you guys enjoyed last episode. We talked about who was it, Mr. Summers, and we talked about business ethics and how they should
Yeah.
direct themselves, especially in a situation where there could be a potential lawsuit. And it was unfortunate for that
Mhm.
for Mr. Summers what he had to go through during that episode. But
Yes.
today we have a brand new episode. It's something that can be a bit difficult to approach at times, especially with your employer, which is discussing wages
Mhm.
between employers and coworkers. And it depends, and you have to know how you should go about it in the professional world.
Yeah, it's one thing to talk to somebody about how's their day going, and it's a whole different situation when talking about wages with an employer or even coworkers. And for most cases, these discussions are very sensitive to people. People can really take offense in these conversations if these are not taken professionally or ethically.
Ethical is the biggest manner or problem in this. I mean, no one wants to be talking about their wages with someone who doesn't value the work,
Mm-hmm.
referencing their employers and their position in the company. So, what we want to say is people, want to be seen as good employees. They want to be recognized for the talents, technical skills, everything they can bring
Yeah.
to the workforce, for the dedication to the company. And, as for the supervisor and upper management, you sometimes have to motivate your employees, and little things like that can do a great difference in the workforce, such as increasing productivity in the work.
Yeah, true. It's important that employees are being valued because at the end of the day,
Hmm.
they're part of the team as well. If you're treating them well and they're being rewarded, the productivity, as you said, will increase in the company. Now, if the employees are treated badly or not rewarded, the productivity decreases.
True, true.
So, with this comes in our discussion about wages. So, how does discussing wages affect a company?
you know we want you guys to be part of this as well, so we're gonna get into discussion. So we asked you guys to send us your questions or whatever concerns you all have about discussing wages with an employer or an employee, especially when times get difficult. You might have an economic leverage that is against you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people deal with these problems and how you can go about it in different ways. But here's one of the questions you guys asked as a, what was it, director of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And Alondra, I'll let you take this one.
Thank you. This one's a bit long, but I'll read it. It says, I'm the director in the company I work for. About a year ago, we took in some new people in our team. We have expanded our company with more locations, so there have been new positions made. After some time, staff have worked here for years now and now are now complaining that the newest employees are getting the same pay as they are. These employees are not upset with me and worrying that their years of effort that they put in the company over the years are not being valued. I want them to feel like they are. At the BizBus, what should I do next?
First off, thank you for being able to participate with this discussions today's podcast. But there are many ways, like I said, to approach the situation. I mean, you have to keep two things in mind. One of them is you have to keep all parties involved
Mm-hmm.
content, you as the employer and the employees and whoever else may be involved. The second thing to keep in mind is that as a supervisor, you want to maintain a well structured team and a good work environment, where people are looking forward to go to work and, they're proud to be part of the team.
Yeah, correct. As well as showing that you're listening to them carefully. Wait to speak until after they're done speaking.
Mhm.
Body language is very important, so it shows that you're taking them seriously and puts you in a better position to their perspective. One other thing is to have them write a consideration letter for
Mm-hmm.
a raise, which will present their inquiry, how they impact the team with their unique role, and presenting their loyalty or their servitude to the company.
You know, you mentioned two things. One of them was the body language. I recently had a discussion with one of my professors, and he was explaining how body language can mean so many things
Oh, yeah.
because just by eyesight, that can be one way of people interpret it, just by fidgeting your fingers or standing tall, or depending how the person, their manner is towards a certain person, it's subject to interpretation.
Yeah.
And the second thing you said was about the letter.
Yeah.
You can also show that the proposal. When you take that letter, you show that the proposal has not been dismissed, but it will be kept, and it could be presented at a later occasion,
Mm-hmm.
whenever it's best. And one of the things that you, our viewer, are doing is providing a sort of standard pay, because the new guys are receiving kind of the same as the older guys.
Yeah.
I would like to say yes, of course. I'll give you a raise if someone comes up to me and asks me that same question, but I can give it to you right away. But putting myself into your position, it has to go through the proper channels first. And not only that, but as a supervisor or manager, you should provide alternatives, such as letting them know that they will be subject to evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
For example, after a certain milestones, a quarter, or after a project is finished. Those are pretty common times when people can be subject to evaluation for a raise.
Yeah, for sure. And also, the behavior science approach is one thing to keep in mind because this sort of management focuses on the behavior within the workforce. So, you have to know what will cause different behavior among your employees. Having a sort of a head start in your institution is important and being aware beforehand
Mm-hmm.
so you know what to expect or what you're trying to avoid. So, staying up to date on the grapevine as
Oh
reference,
yeah, yeah, true, true,
yeah,
true.
grapevines can sometimes be helpful.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, the grapevine is pretty good. Sometimes it can be for your benefit, or it can work against you. You never know. You never know what you can learn off of the
Oh yeah,
grapevine.
100%. So Brian, have you ever like experienced any like talking about wages with an employer or
Um,
coworkers?
yes, I have. When I was working as a superintendent assistant, um, you would have to sometimes onboard people, help on board with the superintendent.
Mhm.
Um, interview them, ask them their skill sets, what they can do, what they can bring to the workforce. What their specialties is, and you'd go through those steps, onboard them. What we would do is give them a standard pay. And one thing we do, it's not a policy, but we do recommend it. We did. Remember, guys, you can't enforce a policy, something
Yeah.
like some that is, strictly prohibited. You can't do that. It's illegal.
Mhm.
But we do recommend for new employees not to discuss wages, because sometimes older employees do ask the new guys, "Hey, how much are you earning?"
Yeah, you have those people like,
Yeah.
"Hey."
"Hey, how much are you earning? What's your entry level?" Or
Yeah.
and we kind of evaluate those people based on what they tell us. Sometimes those employees did lie, sometimes they didn't. So, but at the same time, we don't want resentful employees
Oh yeah,
in
100% sure.
in the work in the environment. So it would be based on technical skills. So we start them at a certain wage,
Mhm.
and the evaluation came afterwards, after a period of time. I think ours was standard for maybe 2 to 3 months. It was,
Mhm.
or it was 8 weeks, something like that. 8 to 12 weeks, which is technically almost 2 3 months,
Yeah.
and we would evaluate them after a specific period of time. From then on, we would decide, from based off what they told us, we would decide, would you get a raise, that'll better serve your technical capabilities, or would you stay at the base pay? Or
Yeah.
sometimes there was some instances where people did lie about their skills, so we did have to deduct their pay. We have to deduct their pay on, not from me, but it was the people in charge of financing and everything. They took those decisions. So,
Mm.
I bet you probably have had similar experiences, right?
I mean, not with an
Not
employer,
with an employer,
but
okay.
with like coworkers.
Mm.
Yeah, when I was working at a bakery, I'm not gonna say names because we're not trying to get sued here.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of new employees come in. It was always like come and go situation. So we had new employees come in, and then like the people that have been there for years now, we're talking like more than 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. They would always ask the new employees like, "Hey, how much are you making?" And they would like tell them, and they'd be like, in a way they would feel bad in a way because that's not the same pay that they had at the beginning when they first begun. But at the same point, inflation and all that stuff, right? But these people felt offended that they were not getting paid as the same way as the new employees right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these, I feel like affected the team for sure because now there was kind of like, what would you call it? Kind of like that awkward situation, relationship between, because, there's, differences between two coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like because of that, a lot of people were leaving. Like, a lot of people were leaving because not a lot of people were getting raises as much. Like, they would have been there for a long period of time. They were doing a lot of more tasks than they were actually.
They were
they were putting, like, those multiple hats,
Yeah.
And they were not even getting paid for it. And they were obviously mad about it.
Too much on their plate, yep.
Yeah. And they started leaving. Like, a lot of people left, so did I. But we don't talk about that. But yeah, I left as well. But yeah, it can be really tough talking about those wages and stuff. 100%.
I mean, yeah, that's very true. I mean, in this case, referring to our viewer and his question, I mean, the pay gap is almost non-existent in this case, but it is more of a real difference. And the problem here is due to seniority. People who have been there longer, you give them the same pay, but obviously some people have been there longer, and, that can be viewed very resentfully by an employee who's been there, let's say, more than 5 years, 10 years, who knows. But I want to take an example. What about those times when the new guys with no experience are being paid more than those who have been with the company for years, or sometimes even better, maybe a decade, like I mentioned?
Oh, yeah. It's that determination on giving those raises can greatly depend on the economic standpoint on a company. Like you or anyone, there are many others in a similar position. Although you have more room to work with, many times there are supervisors that the best they can do is work as an arbitrator between the board and the person of interest. So, one, you can't really make any decisions, and two, you have to keep those working under you happy, and that can be really tough.
I mean, one of the most important rules when handling these situations, I think, is you have to be 100% transparent and honest.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Two, acknowledge their request and tell them that unfortunately in this instance, if not, you can't do that. If it goes against your economic state.
Mm-hmm.
But when addressing your employee, you want to make sure that the request will remain for future conversation.
Yeah.
For whenever the time is right. I probably will say that a couple of more times throughout the podcast because it all depends when the time is right.
Yes.
Make sure they know you have listened to them and will advocate for them when able to.
Yeah, it's important to have that conversation. Know how to communicate well with your employees.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I've heard, I know that there's this city with internal difficulties, which we're not naming again because we're not trying to get sued.
Right.
But you mentioned about the pay gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the beneficial for newer employees compared to those with seniority. Like I said, the city is having internal difficulties. So in this company, this woman named Faith Newman, who is an employee who worked there for 12 years now, is frustrated with these city pay policies. One of them being that the company cannot raise anyone's wages. And the other one is that people who are not fluent in English were getting paid more than the fluent English speakers. So Nguyen brought up to the supervisor the difference in the pay and compared the years of experience to her coworker named Twang, who is a non-fluent English speaker who had only worked there for 4 months and was paid 50 cents more than her per hour and got extra hours of pay each week. So she was not happy at all. The HR director doesn't want to talk about it, so they tell the supervisor who to comfort her and to sue the employee.
Oh yeah, the supervisor was Pierce, correct?
Yes, it was Pierce.
Yep. So we don't know why they were hiring these certain employees, new employees. Maybe they were trying to expand their horizons, but we don't know. But based on just the general information that we have, the city isn't showing, much core value nor beliefs or even taking care of seniority within the company. Because of this, the employees may start feeling undervalued, or many already are, for the work they have put in the company throughout the years, and possibly causing spitefulness. You never know. The way employees view the company would determine the success and the productivity of the company. Productivity is a big thing. That's a big thing as an employer you have to remember.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And for someone to say, which this is what Newman actually said, they said, quote unquote, I was under the impression that pay is a reward for doing the job well and working for the city for a long time. Experience doesn't seem to matter. It's not fair. I would have to reevaluate what my priorities are. If the city is having troubles with the budgeting, they need to do their due diligence of working with those they already have. One thing that a company needs to keep in mind is to not overhire, obviously, because it takes the focus from working with those employees that they already have and instead putting themselves in a financial hiccup affecting these employees.
That is very true. And if I recall, one of the things I almost said the director's name, but the head of director for this certain company slash city, um, he said that there was a certain policy going
Yeah, there was a
against the wage
policy.
discussion. But according to the NLRB, which is the National Labor Relations Board, it states that it is unlawful towards the employer to have a work rule policy or hiring agreement that prohibits employees from discussing their wages with each other, or that requires you to get employees' permission to have such discussions. A company that tries to enforce this as a policy, it is illegal.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand the reason why they would want to try to apply this certain policy, but it does go against the NLRB. It does go against the NLRB. And what do you think?
Yeah, I think the reason why is because just like the scenario we had talked about, it causes discomfort among employees. Like I said before, people don't really like it. It's a hard discussion to talk with other people, and once they're exposed to this information, they don't perform at the best of their ability because they're unhappy. Another reason is that they want to save their breath from having to explain differences, which essentially is convenient only for them, referring to those in charge of financials and wage appointing.
Upper management, yes.
Yeah.
So there was a supervisor that was directly over our Miss Faith Newman.
Mm-hmm.
So when she received a certain dialogue from the upper management head of human resources,
Yeah, HR.
he just kind of vaguely proposed to her what she should do. There wasn't any real meaning behind what he said, mainly more to shrug it off. But she, at the same time, supposedly she was really confused, and that one of the things that was one of the things she needed to elaborate on.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a supervisor and you don't understand something 100%, you need to make sure that what you're saying and what you're going to relay as a message is 100% correct. I mean, there's a difference between understanding, listening, and interpreting. Many times a single statement can be interpreted in many different ways. It could be for good, or it could be for better,
Yeah, exactly.
or for worse.
Yeah, 100%. And the supervisor, they had many ways to approach this, but one thing they can't do is obviously contradict the HR director because they're upper management. Most importantly, they're the HR director, right? So, like what you said, she cannot relay a message that she herself did not understand. Under servant leadership, the supervisor should maintain a third person point of view when relaying the message, thus putting herself in a more desirable position instead of making Faith feel as they didn't do their part and being dismissive about it.
Right. And as we mentioned earlier, and an alternative way to show professionalism is by writing a letter. I mean, the city should show appreciation for hard work the same way they showed it to Elaine. Elaine was promoted and rewarded for her competence. If you read towards the beginning, it says that for her experience and her skills, they can direct themselves in a similar manner with Faith, um, by being inclusive to the extras that they can
Mhm.
offer. By extras, I mean pay raise consideration,
Yeah.
enroll her into building training programs the same way they did with who was it, Miss Elaine.
Yeah.
Or they can even consider her for promotion. Allowing, but also at the same time allowing exposure to building those skills and to taking classes, training courses, programs. It will give the company a leverage because not only did she have the experience, but she will get the applied science behind that experience, if it makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, as a city, you're exposed to many different organizations' programs. So, as an employer, you can decide what is best and more accommodating for your employees. That should be one of the steps to take care of because, they have extra expenses due to the premiums, and finding better fitting health care programs will alleviate their personal budgets, allowing for more income over expenses.
That is true. Um, I wanted to go back, touch a little bit base of how the company responded to Miss Faith, but I also like what you said. If you have less expenses, you will have more income.
Yeah,
So that's very good. That's something that the company needs to look at.
yeah,
It will benefit all parties, most definitely, because if they're paying a lower expense, they also have to cover from their behalf a lower expense. But going back to how the company responded to Faith, they completely overlooked her experience and the time at the company. They just said something vague. What was it like? Thank you for. We see the work you're doing, right?
yeah. They did.
Something vague, yeah.
Yeah, very vague.
But instead, they kind of disregarded her inquiries as a whole by providing a general answer, like we mentioned. This is definitely one way that I believe was not correct in terms of handling the situation. Head of HR did not bring this proposal to other parties that would be of interest. He made a decision based on just past judgment, um, which was that they weren't giving raises. What was it, like, for like 2 years, right?
Yeah, it was 2 years.
It was 2 years, so that's the basis that he went on. So it's been 2 years, you're not gonna get a raise, something like that. Um, we can do it later or something like that. But the situation, may have changed since then, because they're referring to a statement made 2 years ago. You never know how things could possibly change unless you actually bring it to the attention of those that are able to control those sectors. Um, and that's how you can do to promote a little bit of change.
Yeah. I also believe that this has passed through the right channels. It could have been another outcome for all we know, right?
Yes.
In the workforce and as a structured society, everyone needs to have a voice. So the only way to see change when no one wants to hear you is to make yourself notice. So, but as a
As a business
management
owner, yeah.
or part of management, we would not want a situation to escalate.
Definitely don't want a situation to escalate, but I think that you, as a director, um, going back to our viewer who asked the question, I think that you, as a director, like we said, hear them out all the way through before you express yourself. Maintain composed with welcoming body language. Consider the value of the employee and what they bring to the table. Analyze the wages of others and their experience. Calculate an appropriate raise. If that is the case that you're going to take, give them a raise, calculate it, and finally respond to your employee in a timely manner that shows respect and your values as
Yeah.
part of the company. The last thing you want to do is show them that they're not that you're not interested enough to give them a response in a timely manner.
Oh, yeah, I agree. You know, there can be many ethical and unethical practices in the professional world. The best you can do is work with what you have and work according to the guidelines. Although, in some instances, you just have to break those guidelines if they go against morally correct statutes.
Yeah, I can relate to that information because in one of my classes I learned about it. It was ethical but legal. The second one was unethical and legal. The third one was ethical and illegal, and the fourth one was unethical and illegal. I'm gonna do two of them. Hopefully you can give me an example for the other two.
Yeah.
So ethical and legal is kind of straightforward. One example for that can be following the laws that are morally and legally correct.
Yeah.
For the second one is unethical and legal. An example I can give pertaining to the workforce is paying employees the minimum wage for an extreme amount of seniority. You can legally do that. It is legal, but it is morally incorrect, especially if there's inflation. You kind of have to consider how the economic changes, how they affect your employees.
Yeah. So for the other two, which Brian gave me the opportunity to give examples for,
You're welcome.
is ethical, illegal, which an example could be whistleblowing. So reporting an illegal or corrupt activity, but it may be ethical to do so because, you want to do the right thing,
Yeah.
but you can't also violate policies within an organization. So that would make it illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And for the fourth one, unethical and illegal. So for me, as a pharmacy technician, I had to get this example. So giving a fake or an invalid prescription to the pharmacy to obtain in highly addictive substances, or plagiarism or lying. So it could be lying in your resume or your college applications.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things. Hopefully we were able to cover most of the, let's say, your inquiries, your questions, whatever you had. I know there's other viewers who will be asking questions, and if we have the time, we will respond to those accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully we were able to answer your questions and how you can go about the situation. So, but we'll let you guys know.
Yeah, but let us know what you guys think of the situation. What would you do if you were in Lay's shoes? By, tagging us at the Bizz. So we'll be back soon with another episode, hopefully soon. In the meantime, turn on your post notifications. So
Turn them on, guys. Turn them on.
so that you're up to date with our podcast and community posts.
So, guys, we'll see you guys next time on the Bizz Buzz with
Alondra.
and Brian.
Stay
safe, y'all.
My headset did not like me.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I realized.